Say what?
Welcome back. It's time for Say What, where we hear from those connected to our industry about what's going on in our world of electrical apprenticeship. And this includes the topics that you've suggested. So, yes, I'm asking again to please keep those coming. I'm your host, Cindy Sandifer, and this is not Todd Stafford, but you may have figured that out if you're watching. If you're just listening, you will learn very soon that Greg McMurphy is joining us today. And the reason he's here is VEEP. And most of you have heard about VEEP. That's the Veterans Electrical Entry Program. And it's designed to provide transitioning service members the ability to begin a career in the electrical industry. There's so much that we can say about the VEEP program and the impact that it is making in our industry. Today, we decided instead of us talking about it, we would have some training directors come and chat with us. And these particular training directors are now hosting VEEP training at their location. So we have Kevin Johnson, Russell Smith, and Mike Lanou joining us today. All three of you training directors who have chosen to participate in VEEP, and not just participate by taking service members from VEEP, but you have said, no, we want to actually be a VEEP training program where we're training individuals to potentially stay with us or maybe go somewhere else throughout the country. Why did you choose to do that? Let's see, Michael, I'll start with you.
Well, we've always been huge supporters for veterans or service members coming into the civilian workplace. We've always had really good luck with these members coming in. We've been supporting the VEEP program for quite a while. We've always had quite a big success with the candidates that we do get. So we wanted to give back. We wanted a way that we could offer this training here in Salt Lake. We do have 3 bases that are close by. So we wanted to, provide that opportunity for people that are over in this area that we can, give back. And I mean, it's just a good way to promote the program and to get our name out there, to show, these veterans that we are huge supporters of that transitional period of getting these people out into the workplace.
Absolutely. Now, Russell, I know we'll talk about where you are in the process, but what made you and in the committee? I mean, we don't want to leave them out of this by any means. Obviously, they have to be a part of this process. So what caused you all to want to do this?
Well, really the same thing. Our experience with veterans we had in the program, our experience with veterans who came to us through the VEEP program. Just a fantastic experience all the way around. And of course, the committee was very pleased with the results. They said, we need more of this. How can we get more involved? And then you guys gave that opportunity. So it's really a no-brainer.
Okay. Kevin, what are you thinking on the similar to them or different?
It's multi-layered. So, I mean, being in San Diego, we're blessed with a lot of veterans already being here. We have a lot of military bases around us. We're seeing those transitioning veterans in our local area, and they're applying for our apprenticeship already. And we about 20% is where we've been hovering with the veteran population, even before VEEP. But we wanted to serve veterans on another level. And we actually had tried to go out on our own and create individual MOUs with the camps and the Camp Pendletons and the military bases around us. We developed something, and every time we had something developed, new leadership would come in on the military bases. We'd have to start from scratch. So we've been trying to do something like this for a long time, and VEEP was just the perfect answer to it. This was a national program that actually served the veterans, not just who want to stay here, but actually want to go across the United States. So it made a lot of sense. It answered those questions that we had. It met a lot of goals for us. Instead of us doing it locally by ourselves, we were able to utilize the VEEP program.
Excellent. So where are you in the process? Russell, I mentioned, I know you were pretty early in this, right? Pretty new?
We're just getting started.
Okay. And then what about Mike? Where are you? I'm going to call you Michael and Mike. Apparently you're two different people, multiple personality, I think, at this moment.
I think it depends on, where you're at, like if you're mad at me or if you're happy, you can call me Mike or Michael, whatever you choose, but
I'm happy. We'll go with Mike. Okay.
sounds good. Yeah, so we're right at the beginning. We've been accepting VEEP candidates, offering direct entry into our program for a few years now, but we are starting our first VEEP class the beginning of January. So we haven't held a class yet, but we're really excited to get that rolling and get it started here at the beginning of the year.
Okay. So I guess speaking of veterans, Kevin, I think you've become the veteran of this group. Where are you all in this process?
So we just finished our second cohort a couple of weeks ago. So we ran one in October last year. So this is our second year of running a VEEP cohort. We were accepting VEEP participants well before we actually ran our own. So we've been doing it for a few years as a receiving apprenticeship, and then doing the full in-person 7-week pre-apprenticeship. We just ran our second cohort. We're already planning for our third. Greg's been amazing helping us get that organized and starting the application process early next year to run a third cohort. And we've even tried to explore how we could potentially do more, even a second cohort in a year. So we're trying to we're at the point where we want to start expanding this program so that we can get more veterans participating throughout the year.
That's like, I'm imagining how Greg feels. I mean, you already know this. This isn't news to you, but I love like listening to each of you are saying, hey, we were receiving VEEP graduates, right? So we had this experience with that and then decided, hey, this is a wonderful thing. And to me, you're doing what we say we want to do is give back. So you're not only doing this for you and you're doing it for these veterans, right? You're also doing it for other JTCs, really, because you're training them knowing not everybody's going to stay with you, but you're so willing to help really the entire industry through this process. So I to me, it's just so commendable, to listen to you all talk and what your experiences have been. What was the process like? So speaking not of receiving a VEEP grad, but of becoming a training program. Does anybody I know you're in different places, but what was that process like? What's it been like? I don't know if Kevin, do you want to talk about it first since you've been doing it a little longer?
Yeah, I think we were one of the first ones to branch off from the VEEP program in Alaska. So we were the first ones, if that's right, Greg. I mean, I don't want to talk out of school on that, but
yeah, go ahead. I'll let you talk. Go ahead, and then I'll clarify.
So we actually started the whole VEEP thing from scratch. Nobody else did it. We're the first one. So we were able to build off of what they had already done in Alaska. So we had a good framework for how to start it. But there's so many moving pieces. There's the finance aspect of it. There's trying to find an instructor and dedicating 7 weeks of full time to this group. So to start it was intimidating. I won't lie. It was actually scary with the fact that we got to block off a good amount of time for an instructor to actually teach this. And is the financing available? We're leaning on other people to help us finance this because as an apprenticeship we can't fully fund it ourselves. So those were the hurdles that we had to jump. And again, getting back to praising Greg on everything he does, he made that stuff happen. So it was intimidating, but we got there.
Right. And then so the clarification part would be that, as Kevin said, they were the first group, the only group actually to follow the 7-week model like Alaska started with. Alaska came in first. And then we started really quickly actually doing CML classes only. So there's a group of people every year that we support through the Electrical Training Alliance of CML only, Tech Math and Interim Credential. And then about the same time you were starting, Kevin, San Bernardino Riverside started supporting a group of online only students. So we have the online only model, the 7-week in-person model, and now there's hybrid, where such as Mike is about to do, Russell's planning on doing, which will be interim credential tech math up front, and then 3 weeks of in person. And that's what LA isn't here right now, but they're doing 4 cohorts a year of hybrid training with online first, 3 weeks of in person.
And I love that, like just all of these options. Cause if you hear it has to be the 7 week,
Mhm.
right? In person, you might say, gosh, I want to help, but we can't do
Mhm.
that for whatever reason. So I think it's super important that we're evolving how this is working and making sure that the individuals are getting the right training.
Right,
We're not
right.
trying to like water down anything, but more like, okay, how do we become supportive as the Electrical Training Alliance, as JTCs and so forth? I think that's critical. Mike, process, like what's it been like for you?
A lot like what Kevin said, getting everybody on board, getting the system figured out, what's going to work best for us. We had a hard time committing that solid 7 weeks, so that's why we did choose the hybrid. But we didn't want to, like you said, dilute or water down the system. So we looked at other ways that we could also incorporate some training while they're going through those prior months before they come in person. So we're actually dedicating at least 2 hours a week, maybe more. We're going to kind of judge and see how it goes, but a way for these members to check in. We could kind of see where they're at in the process and see what help they need. We don't want them to feel like they're out there on their own, trying to learn this stuff by themselves, throwing all the curriculum at them and then saying, okay, come in these last weeks and now let's do the labs. We want them to know that there's a resource there to help them through the curriculum as well. We were kind of balancing between, do we mandate this or do we just make it optional? We decided we want them to check in with us just so we could keep tabs on them and know that they're still interested in the system and that they're progressing through the curriculum, at the rate that they need to. But also to say, okay, well, if you do need help with this, we're going to offer, a 2-hour Zoom meeting that gives you that opportunity to ask questions. But just getting everybody on board, getting an instructor that getting them familiar with the interim credentials, the platform, so he could relate to the students. I think that's been our biggest struggle with the calendar, and making sure that everybody's on pace. But I think that was our biggest hurdle. But like Kevin said, I can't say enough good things about Greg of getting this off the ground for us and helping us. I mean, he's been really helping us get this put together. So we appreciate everything you do, Greg, and we're excited to get this started.
Yeah, Russell, I'm coming to you. You don't get out of this question, but to plug, because you all have said it. I mean, I've been on kind of a bit of the sidelines watching the work that Greg does, and this is just a moment for you, Greg. But I've seen it. I've seen the passion, I've seen the heart behind it, and that's obviously. I mean, it's coming through not only with the success of VEEP, and obviously there's a lot of people involved. It's not like it's just Greg.
Yeah.
I know he would say that, but it's certainly you and the passion that you're putting into it and the heart that's relaying and making this possible. So I agree with you all on that. Process, Russell, what's it been like for you? Well, you're laughing. Now I don't know how that. No, I'm kidding.
That's the laugh of the insane. It's absolutely frightening. I mean, just listening to these guys, you can tell just the huge amount of things you've got to get right to make this work. And when I first looked at that list, I said, "There's just no way." We're growing at an astounding rate with our apprenticeship program and our CWCE program. And, the old Western where the guy falls out of the saddle, but he's got a hold of the rope and he's trying to get to the horse, it's barely hanging on as the horse takes off and just runs like crazy. That's the feeling. And when we looked at the list of things to do to make VEEP work, we thought, how in the world are we going to do this? But at the risk of getting on the Greg praise wagon, our experience with Greg in accepting VEEP candidates and Greg and his team, the way they ran that process gave us the confidence to jump in to hosting VEEP simply because we knew there was plenty of backup. We've got people who know what it takes, know how to handle the problems, and are there when we need them to deal with those problems. As you can hear from the other guys, that is exactly how Greg and his team handle it. So structure, we're still developing. We're going with a hybrid version, we think. At this point, that's the plan. So having gone through the initial fright and, oh my gosh, how do we do this? We're at the point where we're excited about it. Tremendous level of excitement here. Obviously, the local is excited about the potential. We've got contractors calling us saying, hey, I heard you guys are doing VEEP. How do we help? What can we do? Tell us what you need. So huge amount of excitement building. So process to me at this point is just more of having the confidence to know we got the backup to make it work. We're still working all the how-tos. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like life, right? I mean, when you know you've got somebody, you've got support, you've got someone backing you, you know, there's people that have done it. I mean, just the three of you, you know, you have each other, right? To talk to bounce. I mean, obviously you would want to go to Greg and team for certain information, but just to even just kind of be able to network with each other and having that, I think is so valuable and, you know, everything's hard until it's easy. You know, it's like, you know, when we first started walking, none of us really remember it, right? But you couldn't do it very well until you kept at it and had that support. And the same thing with anything. I mean, swimming, bicycle, I mean, you start naming it and it's that, you know, some of it's muscle memory, some of it's the support, getting the team involved. So I love that everybody's talking about that and how important, you know, just knowing you're not alone. Like whatever you decide to do, take a VEEP grad, do a VEEP training program. Like this isn't meant to be a struggle, even if there are some difficult times going through it. So what have you learned? What are you or are learning, right? You may be still learning from this experience. Let's see, Kevin, what are you learning about anything really? It does, you know, just about your training center.
Yeah, so really, I mean, I know that I have the veteran population. My wife was in the Air Force for 7 years. You know, I have a lot of friends who are veterans, who are friends and colleagues that are veterans. She currently works for the VA. So she actually does ratings for disabilities for veterans. So we have a lot of interactions with veterans already, but to see them come out of the military and then perform over 7 weeks, it gives me a better idea of their drive and their commitment to this and leaning on the skills that they've developed in the military, you know, teamwork, working under pressure, strong work ethic, their ability to adapt, their discipline, their organization. They've been given job opportunities in the military you don't normally get in the private sector. You know, a lot is expected of them in the military. And they bring that here. And during this last cohort, we had one individual who was retired and he came into San Diego and he was living in his van in our parking lot during those 7 weeks because he didn't have any other housing and he wanted to do this pre-apprenticeship and he was committed to it and he lived in his van. And to see how everyone performed and put themselves into this program, it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see their drive and their commitment to this program. And sometimes we as training directors get a little bit jaded because we see apprentices that just take it for granted. But to see this population and how far they go to make this a success, it is inspiring. So that's what I'm learning, is that level of commitment that they have and that this was a great choice, you know, to create that opportunity for them.
Excellent. That's touching. That you got me a little bit with the person that was living in their van. I mean, just so committed to doing this and recognizing what you've got, you know, and this population, as you said, of people. Russell, you know, question: what are you learning as you're, you know, again, I know you and Mike are a little newer in this, but what are you learning from it?
Well, I've learned a lot just sitting here listening to these other guys talk about their experiences. But certainly the value of a good team and a good support structure. And in talking to the veterans that we've had come to us from other VEEP programs, from Greg's program, learning what this opportunity means to them. It's like we were saying earlier, we're so used to some apprentices who just don't really appreciate the opportunity, or maybe they were pushed into this by relatives or whatever the case may be. You get to a point to where you get so involved in making the day-to-day operation work, you really lose sight of what an astounding opportunity apprenticeship is. And every single one of these veterans who have come to us through VEEP so far have seen this in a totally different way. They've seen it for the new, fresh, amazing opportunity that it really is. And so I'm kind of in a weird way getting reacquainted with how amazing this truly is, the thing that we do every day and the opportunities that are provided. So I think that's helped me refine or renew the wonderment of the whole thing, the beauty of electricity and learning to control one of the most powerful forces in the universe in a safe way. I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but you really do start to see it again for what you saw it for many years ago when you first got into it. So
I think it makes great sense. And you know, you're both kind of saying it, this idea of seeing people appreciate it. There's something to appreciation. You know, it's an important thing. And then recognizing, you know, that gosh, yeah, what this means, because we can get stale. It's easy for any of us if, you know, we're doing the same thing, right? We're going through the same process. A lot of times you don't feel gratefulness, you know, for what you do. And so to have this refreshing of your work, of the industry. And I love how you put it. I'm into, you know, like I shouldn't say superhero movies, but that's what came to my mind, is like harnessing this power and, you know, all of a sudden. But it's really
it really is so rewarding. I have the privilege of going to many of these graduations and just hearing people's stories. And, you know, as you mentioned, Mr. Bell and he bought a van and lived in it, and, you know, people willing to do what it takes to make it happen. How grateful they are. It's always rewarding. And as you mentioned earlier, it's really great to be part of a highly functioning team. And it's an honor to work with all your training centers and to have had, excuse me, I'm breaking up. Having had Tanya Strickland supporting the program. Now Danielle Filippone is supporting the program as part of our ETA team. It's really great to work with y'all.
For sure. Mike, what are you learning? What have you learned?
I'd say the biggest thing is trying to anticipate people's learning pace of going through the interim credentials, trying to figure out, you know, where good cutting off points, you know, where we could follow up and kind of make sure everybody's on the same pace, but just trying to anticipate that is, you know, what we're learning right now. But with everybody else, similar stories. I mean, one thing that I'm always learning is every time we get a veteran in is hearing their stories. I think just that transition from, you know, being in the military to civilian, I think it's just such a smooth transition because we're similar platforms, you know, it's, you know, very structured. The veterans do appreciate that, knowing what they need to do, when they need to do it by, who they need to report to. They're just basically tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. But also the teamwork and the brotherhood out there, you know, I think that's very similar that they experience in the military. And it makes it a good transition coming out into the workplace because of you're not just going out there into a job where you're out there by yourself. I mean, we truly are a brotherhood that looks out for one another out there in the field. So I think makes it an easier transition for them is having that support group. But I really enjoy hearing all the success stories and, what everybody has, when they come in and then where they turn out. And I mean, I think that's just why we have such a big success with this program or veterans alone, is just because of the similar structures. And like Kevin said, the similar personality traits and, just their drive to get a job done. So, yeah, we're constantly learning from, what we're doing. And I'm sure we're going to be changing and adapting to, what we find out. But yeah, we're just really excited to get this going.
There's a common theme amongst all of you about this natural fit. And we're by no means saying that every veteran should be an electrical
Right.
worker. Like, I don't think anybody's naive enough to
No.
think that. But the idea that veterans that are interested in becoming electrical workers, or maybe did some work in the military that they want to continue or expand on, there is a natural fit that we're seeing, and again, you are three totally different programs in three parts of the country, and I think that Alaska and others would agree that whether it's a VEEP candidate or excuse me, a VEEP graduate that's come to their program or they're hosting it, they're seeing that exactly what you all have described, in recognizing that. So I think to that end, if you're talking to another training director or if you're talking to their committee, let's say, what advice would you give them about if they're considering becoming a host location? Russell, what would you say to them?
I would say jump in with both feet, both hands, and everything you got, because you got backup. You got a team behind you that's dedicated to making it work, solving problems, and making you and your veterans a success. It's really a great opportunity. So go for it.
Mike, your thought? Oh, so I'm so sorry.
No,
No.
that's fine. That's fine. It's absolutely scary when you look at that list of what you got to do, but you will get over that.
I think that's an important thing, though, because if we were all sitting here like, oh, it's roses and rainbows and it's easy and you are making a difference to those that have served our country. Like, yes, all true. Like, we are making a difference. But if we make it like it's nothing, like snap of a finger and it's done, then you're going to have people like, wait a minute, you guys made it sound like this was the best thing ever. And it's like, yes, it is. And it's not, but it's, and it's a lot of work. There's a lot of organization to it. There's paperwork. There's things you have to make sure are in place. But it's this great, great moment. And I think I like that you're all expressing that. There are challenges. There are things that are difficult, but the reward, right? The price that you pay, if you will, whether it's dollars or time or, staff or whatever, is so well worth it. Mike, your advice to that person listening?
I'd say do your research, find out what's out there, get a good understanding of it and then present it to your committee, get your committee on board and really sell it. Once they see the benefits of it, I don't see why they would say no to it. So, I mean, just being able to present it to your committee in a right way, I think is key, just so you could get that buy-in, but just jump right in. Know that this has been done before and the process is constantly evolving and there's different applications, like as you heard from different platforms. Find out what works best for you and give it a try. And I mean, know that you got that support team. Like I said, Greg's been really helping us kind of organize all that curriculum, getting everything put together. And I mean, I've reached out to Kevin on other issues, and I mean, Russell, I mean, it's we're all here as a support team as directors as well. And I'd be happy to help anybody. And I know you guys would be happy to help others. So just know that not only you have the support group within the Electrical Training Alliance, but also with the directors too, from the different training centers that are out there experiencing it and putting themselves out there as well. So I think just having that confidence or the knowledge, knowing that you have that great support system, it does make it a lot easier. So if you have the capabilities of doing it, do it and know that people will help you.
Yeah, that's big. I mean, it is. I'm back to it, like, Home Alone. Sorry, I'm thinking about Home Alone because I just watched it. And it's like the alone part, right? Home is not the problem. It's alone, and I think that's with anything. And this one being yet another big adventure, right? Big leap. But to have that support, Kevin, the veteran of this group, what advice do you give?
You just gave a Home Alone reference, and then you didn't say Kevin.
Oh yeah. Kevin! Oh my gosh, I messed that up so bad. Rewind. Kevin! Yeah.
Well, I would say that there's a lot of convincing you're going to have to do in your local, because naturally people want to do the right thing and they want to help veterans, but they have to understand what the benefits are for them individually as well. And the struggle you're going to have is you're going to go to your JATC and you're going to say, hey, let's give up some direct entry spots. You got to understand the first reaction is going to be, I want to choose who gets into this apprenticeship. This is my choice. You're taking away my little golden nugget that I get to decide exactly who gets into this apprenticeship. So you're going to have to convince people to give up that very valuable decision making that they have. So what you have to do is some research and see how those top level scores are performing, and convince them to give up some of those spots. It's not just going to be everyone has a warm heart and wants to give up a spot, and understandably so. That's their decision to make. But they have to understand this is an industry improvement. This is you're bringing in people with that veteran background, and they have to understand the benefits that they bring with that military service. Like I had mentioned before, with the discipline and the teamwork and everything else. They also have to understand it's a benefit for the industry to promote how we're serving the veterans as well. And that may sound very selfish and shallow, but that's just the nature of what we do. Because how many other companies say they serve veterans and then they offer a minimum wage? So we have to promote that as well. So that's part of the industry. So you have to go with a well-rounded message of how it benefits the industry as a whole. And of course, the veteran is going to be served in that. But you have to understand what the benefits are for this whole VEEP program.
Yeah, and I'm that warm, fuzzy, emotional, right? That's going to get to me. But then I will back up and say, okay, but business case, right? Let's look at facts and what's realistic. So when you kind of combine this and say, okay, we're going to do our research, we're going to get the information from Greg, we're going to even talk to other JTCs that are participating, and find out, so that when you do come, you're like, yeah, we're doing this because it's the right thing. But also, here's all these benefits to our JTC, to the local, to the contractors, to, our industry as a whole. And I think you're right. That's the sell. Yes, we're going to have to do a lot of work, but here are the benefits. Here, if some of it's dollars, maybe some of it's, you can put it into other things like retention, even recruitment. I mean, there's all these things that, we now have to show for the Department of Labor, in our efforts. And I know I've heard Todd say there's no more diverse workplace, if you will, than the U.S. military, as far as here in our country. And so there's just a lot of things. So you all have, man, it's just fantastic. I think I'm sold.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go become a JTC so I can start VEEP.
And it is
Kidding.
a fairly long lead process. All three of these gentlemen have been through this, that it's a good 18 months ahead of time. We started talking before that first cohort. We were talking well in advance. And because our service members, as they are planning, and as Kevin has seen a couple of cohorts come through, there are people that are active duty, and to get their plans in place, to be able to get their paperwork packets signed off, it takes them time. So we have to have our schedule set, which means you have to have your curriculum set, which means you have to have all this stuff set up, a good long lead, at least 10 months in advance, and solidified so that people can apply and get their paperwork packets in order. So it is a time-consuming process up front, but once it gets rolling, then it starts rolling.
And that could be even a moment of breathing for that JTC. Like, we're not going to tomorrow send, 50 veterans to your program for you to train them. Like, that's not, there is a proven process that will continue to evolve. Right. But I think that you all have spoken really well to that. We're not saying it's easy, but we're saying, it works. Right, I guess is maybe. But what about becoming an electrician is easy? You know what I mean? It's not meant to be easy. It's tough work. It's serious work, it's risky work, it's all of these things, and so it's really, it fits right into what probably is the process anyway. Um, so I thank you so much for sharing. I know you're busy. I know you're very, very busy, and not just with VEEP, with a lot of things. So taking your time away to do this, and really you're doing it for other people. You're not doing it for yourselves. You all are already doing this. So to me, you've taken time today to make sure that our industry is aware of VEEP and what it does. And I appreciate so much that you were willing to do that. So thanks to each of you for it.
It was an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank y'all.
Yes, indeed. Thanks. And it's been a pleasure and honor to work with y'all.
Okay, Greg, first of all,
Yeah.
thank you for sitting with me and enjoying podcasting. I will have you back. You weren't as good as, Kevin, but you were up there. You were up there. But what Todd and I usually do in this moment is just kind of like, okay, what are my thoughts like from this moment that we had with whoever was there
Right.
as our guest? Like, what are you thinking about? So what kind of
Well,
closing ideas for you?
A couple of things that came to mind listening to everybody's interactions. You mentioned that not every veteran is not the same, right? But overall, when you look at the percentages, that group performs better, graduates at higher rate, does well. And another thing, something Kevin mentioned that he didn't quite elaborate on, is he actually looked at statistics. He looked at a couple of years of his graduating classes and looked at their interview scores versus their in-school performance and their on-the-job evaluations. And it was an eye-opener to his committee, and it made that process easier to sell. Let's take a few slots and make them direct entry. You're getting a population that's likely to do better than those people on the top of the list when you look at your percentages.
Right. Which is money. I mean, we talk
Yeah.
about that, like when you start to, and Todd does a better job than I'm about to do, but he talks about that. If you start losing in that first year,
Yeah.
which is typically first, second years when we
Yep.
see people leaving, then you can't really recoup it. So if you're pulling in a population that has been through some training, they know what the work is, they know
Yep.
they want to do it. And again, the data is backing this.
Yep.
Like
Yeah,
somebody said no brainer. Right?
exactly. They're already a population that's likely to do well, and they have succeeded in our curriculum. So there's one less point of failure.
Absolutely. So it just, again, it's not that we're trying to force, but we just want people to have the information, right?
Right.
To make an educated decision,
Right.
and hear from your peers and understand what this can be for the program, for the industry,
Right.
and so forth. Yeah.
Right. It's just a couple of slots. It's not, this is your only veterans outreach. It's,
Mhm.
give it a shot, pick a couple of direct entry candidates and see how it works out.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to Kevin, Mike, and Russell. I said Kevin first, of course. I'm sorry, Kevin, I'm picking at you still. But thank you for taking your time out of your extremely busy schedules to talk with us, and certainly want to thank you for all that you are doing to serve our veterans. We
Yes.
commend you. We thank you. We appreciate you. If you want to learn more about VEEP, visit to the number 2 VEEP, VEEP. So in2veep.org. And you can also reach out to my good pal, Greg McMurphy, by email gm@etalliance.org. And he'll be glad to help with
Absolutely.
anything that you need. So big thanks to you, the listeners, for taking time to join us and hear more about VEEP. Remember that we want to hear from you. So if there are topics you want us to chat about, if you want to join us on here, send an email, saywhat, SAYWATT, @electricaltrainingalliance.org. And let's see, next episode is going to drop in June. Until then, you can stay connected with us through our newsletter, blog posts, social media, and be sure to subscribe so you'll know when the next podcast episode is live. Stay powered up, and we will see you next time.
Say what?